Good evening and welcome to I'm Listening Live. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative that works to both normalize and destigmatize talking about mental health. That's right, we want to be asking those around us, how is your mental health? That's how we get honest answers and let people know that it's okay to talk about mental health, but also that you are a safe person with which to discuss our mental health struggles. We're hitting a wall, we're pushing through, we're doing the best we can. So as always, I'm reminding you to drop the bar, let things go, and just be kind to each other. Also, now is a good time, while following the guidelines around social distancing, to go online and maybe find yourself some love. There are lots of single, isolated people that are using the apps. Some people think that maybe now's not really the best time to do that thing, but guess what? We deserve self-care. We deserve a little fun and joy into our lives, and it's a really good way to have a healthy distraction. So if you are single or in an open relationship or looking for some love, go online. All right, now let's go to our first guest, Audrey Hope, trauma therapist and spiritual expert. How are you? Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and how is your mental health doing right now?
Well, actually, I just got vaccinated.
Ah, well done. How you feel?
It's I didn't have any side effects or anything. We had to I work at Seasons Rehab, and so it's all good.
Oh,
feel
phenomenal. Good. Well done. So it's been a rough year. We're trying to come out of 2020 as unscathed as possible. But for a lot of people, it was pretty traumatic. So when we're kind of talking about the trauma of the past year, what is it that people should be focusing most on?
Well, it's time to heal, Dr. Chris. And the good news is that everything has to come up for healing. And when you do healing, you want it to be that way. And it has been like so much, and there's overwhelming energy. But the good news is we can see it all, and so we can begin to heal it. And now is the time for healing. So I have some great ideas on how to suggest things for people.
Good. Let's jump right into that. A lot of our listeners got their little pen and paper ready to go. So what are the steps or things that people should consider?
Well, first of all, you can't deny it. You can't just say, I'm fine, I'm doing well. You can never do that with trauma. Because if you do that, it will begin to surface in other ways. Illness, addiction, depression. So you really have to honor the fact that there's been a lot happening, and you have to take time and space to do something about it, okay? So one of the things I suggest is not just talk about it. Because trauma is like a nuclear bomb. It's so intense, it lives in your body, and you have to release it on that level. So you have to do something that is externally getting it out of your body, which is a healthy way of screaming it out, walking it out, shouting it out. But you really have to honor that it's in there. I think of it like invisible gas. Also, you have to take care of yourself. Be in nature, meditate, make sure you think positive, because believe it or not, there is a difference between the energy of fear and the energy of hope. People can get sick from fear.
And let's talk about the first point. I love what you said. We have to be willing to go into the work. It's very American for us to try to toughen up, push through, not get bogged down. And that not only doesn't help resolve the trauma, but it can further complicate sometimes.
You cannot take a pill with this.
Right.
You can't put a curtain over it. You can't stick the monster in the closet. And the thing is, with trauma, you realize that there's so much energy trying to keep the monster in the closet. But if you really gently bring it out into the light, you can deal with it. It's the hiding it that's the problem, that causes most of the pain.
And talk for a minute about the intuition of the body, because like what you said about externalizing, working through, releasing the energy. I tell people, listen to your body. Sometimes if we can sit in that silence, it can kind of direct us.
The body will tell us absolutely everything. And the simpler it speaks to us, the more profound it is. Like someone will say, oh my God, I feel like I have chains around my neck. I feel like I have this thing living in my stomach. That are our soul messages. And if you can listen to it, you can save years of therapy. So I would say to someone, close your eyes, find out where the fear is living inside of you, spend time in it, and almost kind of get a picture of what it is. what does it look like inside the body? And then when you get that will also help years of therapy. When you get a good look at what it is, you can begin to work with it and begin to see what it needs to leave your body. And this is all can be through cartoons, through visualizations. And I work with that a lot. Just finding it, talking to it, and then seeing what it needs and then releasing it.
Beautifully said, and I like the idea of talking a little bit about coping mechanisms, right? So you beautifully said how, we want to deal with the trauma, we want to face it, befriend it, work with it, and those that aren't or haven't, now's a good time to do that work. The COVID's closed down a lot of our distractions, so we can be left with self. But talk about the addictive piece. What should people be doing to assess whether or not they're drinking as a result of just downtime and boredom versus maybe this is a trauma outcome?
Well, I work in an addiction center, so addiction is the outside of it, but there's always a deeper meaning in it, and you have to really find it at the root of the soul, I say. So if you just stay in the addiction, you're going to lose it. It's never just about the addiction. It's a symptom of a deeper problem. And so this is like we're all in PTSD. We're in the aftermath of so much survival. And so we have to understand it as that. There's like a time lapse in it, like when I work with the people from 9/11, they came for healing 4 years later. So it's to understand that you cannot escape. And if you don't do it now, it will come later. So addiction is just a symptom of what's really, really deep. And another good thing, Chris, is that people are healing everything now. I mean, relationships, marriage problems. With COVID, there's really I have like this quiz, like what did COVID teach you? How have you changed? What's different in the way you look at things?
I love that because one of the buzzwords that's been really powerful for me and I'm using with a lot of my clients is post-traumatic growth, like the growth possibilities.
I love it.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. And you find out so many amazing things have happened through this time out, which is a very spiritual thing. Stay home, be quiet, be in the silence. And so what's happening is people are changing partners, thinking about what they really want to do in this life, So with a new perspective, which is how to look at pain, which is a spiritual view, like, what is this causing me? I call it a wake-up call. And also with the fires, I work with people in the Malibu fires. Fire is a very spiritual thing because things burn and then you can see. So it's alchemy. There's an alchemy that's happening. And through the process of this transformation, we do grow. So I would ask your listeners, like, what's happened to them in the last year?
And one final point, I want to share a very quick anecdote with you. Many, many years ago, like a good American, I ran into the vitamin shop and I was stressed and anxious. And I said to the person working there who's got a brilliant holistic mind, I said, give me something for my stress. And he looked at me and he said, when's the last time your bare feet touched the earth and you were in nature? Horrified when I go, it's been well over a year and a half. And he goes, start there. I drove to the beach. I put my bare feet in the sand. Bam. Total shift.
Beautiful.
We need nature.
And that is the way to do it, which is also to put your feet in the ocean.
Right.
Because salt water is really great. And if it's cold where you are, you can go into a bathtub with Epsom salt. You just really need to, nature is so special for healing. You can touch a tree, lie down on the ground, look at the sky, look at the sunset, and begin to appreciate what you do have, not what you don't have.
Beautifully said. Audrey Hope, thank you so much for being a part of our show, and thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Chris.
Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
And I love that message. A lot has happened in the past year, and we have a lot of year ahead of us. And if we can focus that on really encountering, facing, and sitting with ourselves and all that's come from last year, and so many beautiful resources available, so much healing is possible. And also we'll put some resources up at the end of the show. Now let's go to our next guest, Ryan Sheldon, body acceptance advocate. How are you, Ryan? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How is your mental health doing right now?
My mental health is doing really well, actually. I feel kind of bad to say that, but it's doing really well for the first time in a long time.
Congrats. I like hearing that people are thriving, and I know it can be hard to say that out loud, but we want people to be able to celebrate that. And
Yeah.
coping mechanisms and self care. What kind of things are you engaging in right now?
Yeah, I feel like that over the past year almost since quarantine, it started a little rocky for me, and then I got into the groove of what I consider self-care and how I want to practice that and how I choose to practice that. And over the past several months, I have really started to just I want to say like fall in love with my body again. I feel like this being quarantined and not having to leave your house for a period of time has allowed me to not care so much about what others think. So I found myself just enjoying my body and embracing it. I know that might sound a little odd to some people, but
No.
for me, it makes sense.
I love hearing that because I think the general consensus is that this has been a really tough time on people's relationship with their bodies. They're not moving as much as they feel comfortable moving. They're over analyzing what they're eating or not comfortable with what they're eating. So let's talk about that. In terms of body acceptance, the pandemic has forced us to really form a new relationship with our bodies. We don't have access to what we're most comfortable and familiar with. So in terms of body acceptance, what does the work look like right now for us?
In terms of body acceptance, the work looks like not being so hard on yourself. I've For so long I've been saying allow yourself the grievance to not be perfect, and that's okay to not be perfect. And I finally have gotten into that mindset where it's I don't really care what other people think. I now, I'm been in Florida for months now, and I go to the pool, I take my shirt off. Well, there's no one here obviously, but I just am embracing it. I don't know necessarily what that looks like, but what that feels like is amazing and freeing.
Yeah, and for people that aren't familiar with your backstory, because you've been a guest on Loveline before, this is a little bit of a journey for you as you've struggled with your own acceptance of your own body.
Yeah, I mean, I was diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder and an eating disorder. So I have struggled since I can remember the age of 8 years old, always hating my body. I know that's a strong word, but that's how I felt. And now I finally live in a place where within myself, that I feel like I am accepted. And maybe that's because I haven't lived the normal life in terms of, going on dates and being around people. So maybe that has something to do with it. But it's going to be interesting when I reintroduce myself to the world.
Yeah, and it's really important work. It's really hard for anyone to be allowed to just feel okay about how they are, whoever they are in our culture. And I think right now we're getting flooded on social media with people talking about COVID weight gain, COVID weight loss, home workouts. So how do you keep your mental health healthy around being flooded with all that?
So this is the truth is I got off social media for a long period of time. It was so destructive. I kept finding myself, feeling exactly like you were saying. I was getting flooded with all of these ads for working out, or these influencers that were influencing nothing but their six packs, filling up my feed. And even though I wasn't following them, they were still filling up the feed or suggesting, and it just made me feel so horrible that I got off of Instagram. And I mean, I just didn't go on for a while. And then I started going back on around the election time to kind of see what everyone was posting. And I found it so negative and so toxic to some degree that it's been hard for me to reintroduce myself into getting used to scrolling again. But I found myself really just knowing the source of this. And that's what's helped me along this journey, is like knowing that the diet industry is over a $60 billion industry a year. They're selling you that cultural ideal body the same way they're selling you that car. And people are posting about that because they're probably getting paid to post about that to some degree. So that's been helpful to understand the source of where this is coming from.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the broader topic of also paying attention to what we consume psychologically, right? Nothing's neutral. And if you're trying to work on your mental health or body acceptance, you have to pay attention to what you are visually consuming. And as you said, it's going to be really hard to feel good about how you are or have neutrality if you're swimming in images that are telling you otherwise. Let's quickly also talk about the idea that people will really focus on, you got to be healthy, but people's definition sometimes ignores mental health, and that has to be part of that discussion.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because I think that when people keep saying healthy, 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 they look at your body, they look at your weight, but why aren't they not saying mentally healthy, mentally fit? Like, that's my thing. I feel very mentally fit right now. In fact, I feel probably more mentally healthy than I have in a very long time. And for me, that is more important than anything else, because that is what's getting me through the days currently. I think people need to readjust their view when they say healthy, because it's actually insulting when someone says, "Are you healthy?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm great." And they're like, "But you look like you're overweight." That I get often, and I'm tired of hearing that. I think it's the way that people are perceiving us, because mental health is truly what is going to keep you going through this time.
Yeah, and also just the whole concept of, number one, don't comment on people's bodies, right? Mental health tip number one. And also, health can exist at every size. Someone's larger body doesn't promise a lack of health, just like someone's smaller body doesn't mean that they are in health, right? We have to actually go get blood work, our heart tested. You know, it's far bigger than that. So I like what you're pointing out. Like, we have to extend that discussion. And also, how about this? When you're talking about health, always say, what's the mental health impact on that, right? Like, some people think that working out is never negative, but you got to look at what's driving that. What's the goal?
Totally. I think that, it goes back to the whole thing I always say, where people don't wear their eating disorders. And when I was in the thick of my eating disorders, when people would think that I looked culturally acceptable because I looked very fit and I was the unhealthiest I've ever been. And there is a such thing as over-exercising, and that can lead to eating disorders as well.
Beautifully said. And what are some resources that people can look to if they want to kind of do some of this work? I know that your social media is always trying to advocate for this. What else?
So other sources, I think National Eating Disorders Association is probably the number one resource. If you're looking for help or think that you may be struggling or are struggling with body image, eating disorders, that's the place to go. They have a chat now button. They have a helpline. Also, Instagram is flooded with so many good resources and so many accounts that are there to help you, but you just have to weed out the ones that are triggering for you.
Well said. Ryan Sheldon, thank you so much for being a part of our show, and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. You as well.
Good night, Brian. All right, and there you have it. We got to pay attention to everything that we are consuming, because everything has an impact on our mental health. So pay attention to how you feel as you're engaging all the different forms of media. For those that need some extra support, we're going to put some up after the show. You guys have a good rest of your night. And as always, thanks for hanging out.